Am I the asshole for explaining to my sister-in-law why she has periods? I, 38 male, have been married to my wife, 26 female, for 8 years. We have 2 beautiful children together, and I have one from my previous marriage, who I share partial custody with her mother. I have a great wife and family. My wife gets along great with my family, and I get along well with my wife's family. Until recently, that is. My wife's sister, let's call her Betty, had a housewarming party, and we were all invited. Most of their family was there. The parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, etc. She had just bought her first house after working 2 jobs and saving for it. As a single mother, it seemed she should spend her time trying to find a good husband and father for her son rather than working. But I must admit, the house is very nice. We had a great evening until we all sat down to talk. The kids were in the playroom and the adults were in the sitting room. Somehow, the conversation went to women and why they have periods. I said, you know why women have periods, right? Because Eve ate the apple. It's God's punishment. Betty said, well, I think there's a little more to it than that, and everyone starts laughing. I said, don't make a mockery of God's judgment. That's just the way things are. Betty turns to look at my wife with a confused look on her face. My wife says, it's okay, Betty, let's just change the subject. Betty turns to look at me and says, you can't be serious. You truly don't believe that's the only reason we have periods. I said, well, what other reason is there besides what it tells us in the Bible? For some reason, Betty turned to look at my wife again. My wife just shook her head and looked to the floor. Betty turned to look at me and stood up in my face like she was a man herself and told me I am too old to be holding on to that barbaric way of thinking. Science and basic biology will tell you the reason women have periods is because it's a normal part of our reproductive cycle. What is wrong with you? I couldn't believe she had stood up in my face at this point. I say, you can try and use science to explain it, but when it all boils down to it, the painful reproductive cycle is a punishment from God for Eve biting the apple. Betty's face got red, probably from embarrassment. Then she told me to get out. I couldn't believe she was kicking me out for telling the truth. It's ridiculous that she's been single for so long that she can't handle it when a man proves her wrong. I told my wife that her sister was completely out of line and overstepped her authority. Me and my family left as she asked. I don't think I will allow my children or my wife to be associated with that nonsense. She will poison their mind with a bunch of science crap to discredit God's word. After that night, it makes sense why she is still single. My wife hasn't said anything about it since, but my mother-in-law thinks I should apologize. My brother-in-law said I should read another book besides the Bible, which is ridiculous because I do. What do you think? Am I the asshole for telling the truth?